Good afternoon. I do hope everyone is doing well today. For this week, we were to look at America, history, and life. And in this database, I did find many articles that pertained to my topic of strategic bombing in Europe. The three articles that I picked do look at specific aspects of strategic bombing. In the first article by Joris van Esch, Restrained Policy and Careless Execution, Allied Strategic Bombing on the Netherlands in the Second World War. In bombing an occupied country, it really did provide a lot of unique issues and challenges for the Allied powers. Because, again, you want to attack your enemy, you want to hamper their war-making abilities. But in bombing an occupied country, you have to be careful with civilian casualties. In the article, Van Esch does argue that there was a genuine effort by the Allies to minimize civilian casualties while still carrying out the war against Germany. But he argues that in the end, it really didn't work, that civilian casualties by bombing was still extremely high, and eventually didn't even hamper Germany's abilities, that ultimately strategic bombing of the Netherlands failed in both aspects here. It just did not work. The second by Heather Venable, Rescuing a General, General Hayward Possum Hansel, and the Burden of Command. Hansel is very important to the strategic doctrine. He is one of the creators of it. He is at the Air Corps Tactical School and is one of the architects of the U.S. strategic bombing used in the Second World War. He later was placed in command of the 8th Air Force. What the article is getting at is that Hansel has always been fairly heavily criticized for his leadership ability, and the fact that he would not modify the doctrine as the war progressed when the doctrine needed to be modified, that he was too dogmatic in sticking to what was, what he helped create prior to the war. But Venable argues that that's just not true, that Hansel was a very effective commander of the 8th Air Force and did modify the doctrine when it was needed. Venable does look at the effectiveness of the bombing as well. And even though she argues that it wasn't effective as Hansel had hoped it would be, or believed that it could be, but in the end, the bombing did prove to be fairly successful and did hamper Germany's war-making ability. The third article by Kenneth Worrell, Friction in Action, Revisiting the U.S. Army Air Force's August 1943 raid on Ploiești. Ploiești was an oil refinery in Romania, and it was producing as much as 60% of the oil and fuel supply for the German military. So the importance of taking out that refinery was, very big to the Allied powers. The U.S. had hoped to launch one massive bombing raid to take out the refinery in one attack. It did fail of its purpose. So there were many issues that went wrong with this mission, including getting away from the strategic doctrine that, heavy bombers were to fly, high altitude, but in this case, bombers were used at a very low altitude. And due to that and really other issues, Ploiești was not destroyed. And it actually, in the end, would take many missions to take out Ploiești. But Worrell looks at one mission and the effectiveness of strategic bombing by looking at one particular mission, the most controversial mission of the war. And in the end, as he argues, due to a lot of different issues, different errors in the mission, it did fail of its purpose. So these are the three articles that look at different parts of strategic bombing. And anyway, I hope everyone has a good day, and I will look forward to your comments. Thank you very much. Bye.